Good evening. My name is Herb Jenkins Sr. I am the 41st Polemark of the Baltimore Alumni Chapter. I'm proud to be your host and the moderator of this evening's event, where we interview the 50-plus year members of the great Baltimore Alumni Chapter, the benchmark of Kappa Alpha Psi.
Milton Langley, Alpha Iota, December 1948.
Brother John Cruz, 1948, Alpha Iota, Morgan State University.
Randolph Edwards, 1953, Tar Chapter of West Virginia State College.
Brother Guy Bragg, Alpha Iota, Morgan State College, now University, 1958, December.
Brother James L. Watkins, Delta Lambda, St. Paul's College, 1960.
There's one individual who cannot make our panel discussion this evening, but we've got to mention him. The 29th International Grand Polemark of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, Howard L. Tubman, Jr. Evening, gentlemen. Or should I say brothers?
Good evening.
Question number one. Each of you answer it in the best way you want to answer it. When did you become a member of the Baltimore Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi? Start with you, Brother Langley.
Yes, well, initially I became a member in 1956, I think it was. But I did not keep the membership, keep it going because my job required that I travel a bit. And I was gone most of the time, and I joined several other alumni chapters while I was traveling. But Baltimore was a Kappa town, so it was a great thing in 1968 when the conclave was in Baltimore.
Okay.
And we had some very influential people. It was a Kappa town in
Wonderful.
1968.
So you came back in 1968
Right.
to membership in Baltimore Alumni Chapter.
Then I was still traveling quite a bit, so it wasn't until actually 1980, 41 years ago, that I became a constant that I've been sustaining ever since.
Wonderful. Brother Coombs,
Yes.
same question.
I became a member of the Baltimore Alumni Chapter in 1950. I graduated from Morgan in 1950 and went right into Baltimore Alumni Chapter. And I have been a member. In fact, I can brag about being financial in the Baltimore Alumni Chapter. But I would like to develop just for a minute.
Sure.
I can't get over the progress that Kappa Alpha Psi has made in Baltimore. When I was in the alumni chapter, we met in somebody's living room. Or we used to meet at a couple at a funeral home. We would meet down there. None of this existed.
Wow.
And I take my hat off to the brothers of the alumni chapter in Kappa Alpha Psi. I would like to recognize Brother Jordan. He's going through what I went through, picking up brothers, what have you. I had no idea that I would have the occasion where somebody had to wait on me. Somebody had to dress me.
That's a blessing.
They had to pick me up. And I really appreciate being in Kappa. One more thing. Somebody just said, lady just said that Baltimore is a Kappa town. And it is. Because I thought I was going Omega. I was on the track team, and all the athletes were Omegas. But I'll never forget it. Ernest Murphy said to me, "Are you out of your mind? Baltimore is a Kappa town." And that's when I decided to go Kappa, and I made it.
Amen. Wonderful, wonderful. Brother Edwards.
Yeah, I came to Baltimore in 1959, and I became a member of Baltimore Alumni Chapter the following year, 1960. And I've been here ever since. And I watched it develop from this area to where we had a house on Liberty Road. And then when I came, we were having meetings everywhere. Even at the funeral home for one of our brothers.
Brother Law.
Brother Law. So So we've made great progress since I've been here, up till now.
All right. Brother Dr. Bragg.
Yes, sir. Well, let's see now. When I was in high school, well, when my sister was in high school, she knew a lot of the Capitals, the guys who eventually went Capital. Donald Rigby, Earl Knight, all these guys. They were at the house for her parties and things like that. In fact, sometimes they had to kick me out of the party because they knew I was going to go upstairs and tell my mother. You know, so anyway, I knew all these guys, you know. So by the time I hit Morgan, it was understood. I was going to play at Kappa. You know? So I played Kappa AI in 1958, and I think right after that was when they had the Philadelphia Grand Chapter. That was my first Grand Chapter. I mean, we were in our world, so we went over with the Grand Chapter. So I don't know if you had to be a member of the alumni chapter to go there, but it gets a little that period of when I actually was a member of the Baltimore alumni. I had different situations where I had to go through, like when I left Morgan in '61. That was when they had the Berlin crisis, and it was drafting people right and left. So I went in the Army for 2 years in '63, and I came back. I went to dental school for 4 years, and once I finished dental school, I knew then, that was in '68, I knew from then on I was a member of Baltimore alumni from henceforth, but I'm not quite sure about those years in between because of the interruptions. But like all the members have mentioned, like I said, all I knew was Kappa. I didn't even know anything about Omega or Alpha or anything like that. It was Kappa, wasn't no doubt in my mind which way I was going. You know?
Wonderful. Yeah. Otherwise,
Yeah.
same question. When did you become a member of Baltimore Alumni?
I became a member in 1966. Matter of fact, Brother Edwards took me to my first meeting here in Baltimore with Brother Hankins, who was there. And what I recall, as some have already stated, we were meeting just where we could meet, and then we started meeting at the James Brown Motel. We did that. we did that for a little while. And then I recall us meeting on Garrison Boulevard. That was a Muslim temple there. I think we met there very briefly. So I think at some point, I can recall that Brother Kroon, Brother Edwards, and a number of other brothers who were not here, many have gone chapter invisible, but we decided, there was 10 of us got together and said, we want to get a house. And that was the genesis of the house on Liberty Heights.
Okay.
And that was the genesis. It was 10 of us, and we each put up $500. I'll never forget that part. At that time, $500 was a lot of money for me.
Right. Well, we're going to come back and ask more questions about the 4903 house. But I've got another question for you. What was Baltimore like and the chapter like 50 years ago? And I'm going to start back with you, Brother Lane. What was the city like and then the chapter?
Well, when I first joined the chapter, I think they called a roll each time, each meeting.
Okay.
Whether it was in somebody's basement or whether it was in Mondawman's basement or anywhere. And I lost track of.
Well, that's okay. What else? I'll go to you, Brother Clemens. What was the city like? What was the chapter like 50 years ago?
Like I said a few minutes earlier, the chapter was very small. I don't think we had 30 members in the Baltimore Alumni Chapter. And as I said before, we met in somebody's basement, brother-in-law's funeral home, and the group was a tight-knit group. And I remember some things I won't mention, I had to do for brothers that you wouldn't think of. Well, I will give you one example. There was a brother who was on hard times. and we were getting ready for a conclave. I forgot where it was. He couldn't go because he didn't have the money. I consider myself a very lucky person because some of you might know I prepared income taxes. And I used to have good years. And at the height of the year, I might be walking around with $5,000 or $10,000 in my pocket before I could. That's the way it was. So he wouldn't go. I went to his house and told him, brother, I'm not gonna call his name. We are going to the conclave. And as I told you before, he didn't want to do it. But I insisted, and I gave him a check. He took it, and I'll make this short. It was a lot of money. He and his wife went. He paid me back every dime that I let him have. And I wasn't even looking for anything. But he insisted. He's dead now. God bless his soul.
Were influential downtown. George Russell, Box Harris, those people who
Bishop
knew.
Robinson.
Bishop,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Those people who knew and were able to talk to the people who had the say-so in Baltimore.
Okay.
D'Alessandro the Younger, who was
Sure.
the mayor at the time.
So we
George
have,
Russell had his ear.
gotcha.
So we had no problem getting things done.
And don't forget Billy Murphy.
I forgot him already. I wasn't a fan of him.
Who was a fan of Billy Murphy?
All right, thank you, Brother Lammy. Brother Vandy, your turn. What was Baltimore like 50 years ago? And the chapter 50 years ago.
Well,
50 plus years ago.
Well, I'm going to start with the chapter.
Mm.
The chapter was relatively small.
Mhm.
It was very small. We met everywhere. And the way that the chapter began to grow and how it began to grow, it was 4903 Liberty Road.
One-
Now, I was the first one that saw the for sale sign on that door, and I alerted Fenimore Cooper.
Okay.
I think Hankins was polemark at that time. I alerted Fenimore Cooper, and Fenimore Cooper took a group of fellas in, and we liked it. So we decided to buy the house, and that's how 4903 came
Okay.
to be.
Wonderful. One. Dr. Beck. Oh, I'm sorry.
And well, I'd just like to add that Fenimore Cooper was the dean of pledges when I was in the Stroller Club.
Oh, my
And he was
goodness.
a very good man. Very good man.
All right.
And Fenimore, not Fenimore, Randy's name was on the liquor license.
That's right.
I'm gonna ask another question, probably of you, Brother Coons. Didn't we have a house down here on Utah Place?
Right where we're sitting.
4903.
No,
No, that's
What was
Liberty
it?
Heights.
What was the number?
1207 Utah
1207.
Place.
So we had a house
Yeah,
here,
1207.
Right here.
and then we left this property.
Yeah, they bought
We
it.
didn't, it was redeveloped.
Oh, they,
The whole
okay.
block was torn down except for the Masons.
That's why we were moving everywhere
'Cause,
to
okay.
have a meeting.
And then it came back. How about that?
Hey,
Isn't that
in a
special?
complete circle.
Dr. Bragg is your brother, Dr. Bragg. What was the chapter like 50 years ago, and or the city, either one?
Well, you know, actually, if I can digress a second, since they brought this up, I was made in this house.
In the 1207
This house right
house on
I
Utah.
was made.
Wow.
I went through all the floors blindfolded, all the way. It was like, what do they call that stuff?
No, we can't talk about that.
I can't go that way, but anyway, I was made in this house. But anyway, as I reflect back, Baltimore was a great town to me. You know, even with the restrictions we have with racism, things like that, because we had our own things. You know, you had the avenue was flourishing with businesses, nightclubs, you have movies, theaters you can go to, you know. There were certain places you couldn't go, obviously, but we were happy where we were, you know. And the entertainment was out of sight, the restaurants, I remember the Garrison Lounge up there, great food, all those types of things, you know. If there was, contrary to what we're going through right now, if someone got killed or shot, it went through the neighborhood like, did you hear? No, you kidding? No, are you serious? Somebody, no. That was not the scene then. That was not the scene. Now, if you went in the wrong neighborhood, you might get your butt kicked.
Right.
You know, before I getting shot, you know, or well, you might stab or something, but shot, there were no guns, it was like that type of thing. When all of the, what the, Bethlehem Steel and General Motors, all those places left and the drugs came in and the guns, that's what's going on now, but no one wants to deal with the causes of what we're dealing with. Baltimore was great. Baltimore was great. You know, I had no problem. When you weren't ignorant as to the restrictions you went through, parts of racism, but you know, you enjoyed everything. You know, like I said, things and places to go, nothing to fear, basically.
Tell me about the beaches, Cars Beach.
Go to Cars,
Barrows,
beaches, and
Barrows.
Barrows. Yeah, there's,
Edgewater.
private beaches down there. You can go down there. I forget the name of it. Beachwood Park. Yeah, there's some other places. Plenty of things to do. Yeah, you didn't need to go no place else.
Gotcha.
But when it's a funny thing, when things were restricted, opened up, businesses died. Just things just died away.
We allowed a lot of that to happen.
Wow.
Yeah. So now the chapter, it was almost like when you went to chapter. When I went to chapter, it was like we were brothers, but you were intimidated by the icons. I call them icons. You know, I mean, the Langleys and Prunes and things like that. You know, I got to know a lot of them through my brother-in-law Raymond Gray, he went to Lincoln. But the guys that you can talk like George Russell, you know, Box Harris. These guys are big figures, you know. And so you went in and said, you know, I'm in some tall cotton here, you know.
Sort of like I look up to you guys today.
So anyway, that was my remembrance of Baltimore and the chapter, you know, and it's great to see how it's grown, and I just wish that we could get to the sources of all the issues we have, because Baltimore was a great town, you know.
Brother Jay?
Well, I came to Baltimore in 1966 and joined immediately. I think I'd probably been around, I was going back and forth from Washington, D.C., because I had an apartment in Washington, D.C., and I had just gotten a job with NCR. I was the first African American to be hired by NCR, National Cash Register, right across the street from Madison Street.
Right.
And I think I probably had a couple of months, and I ran into Brother Edwards, and he introduced me to the brothers in the alumni chapter in Baltimore, and I've been a member ever since. I became financial as soon as he taken me there. And my recollections, though, at that time, because we did have guys like our brothers that have already been mentioned, but one of the things that always impressed me was we had a real strong brotherhood, really strong. The guys, now if you were thin-skinned when you came into, once we got the house, when we got the house permanent, if you were thin-skinned, you may have a little problem. But if you just took it all in stride, you were fine. And when we first got the house, our bar was made up of 2 doors that had been taken out of the house off the entrance, and we put some cinder blocks under them, and that was the bar, and that was the initiative. And surprisingly, it was packed from the time we opened until the time we closed, really. But so I have very fond memories of a lot of the brothers and a lot of the good times that we had, because basically Kappa Alpha Psi is a social fraternity, basically. And then we decided, hey, well, we've got to give out here to the community, those who are less fortunate than we are. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. Of course, we can always do better. But those are my things. And I think the closeness, if a brother had a problem, the brothers came to their rescue. And so that fraternal spirit was there. You know, I mean, it just, it was really, really, really something to behold. It really, those are my good things that I think.
great 4903 Liberty Heights Kappa House. When I came to Baltimore and came back home, I'm a native, and I came back home in the early 80s. I jumped right in there, and I ended up being a member right away. That was a place to, I'll tell you, younger guys, I wish you could have seen it. Yep. Anyone else want to add anything else? One question I would have is, can you remember the exact year we purchased and moved into 4903?
You know, the only thing I can say is, like I mentioned, I was made here. I went over in this house. And it wasn't very long after I went over that they made the move. So it hadn't been somewhere around 60 or something.
And
It was in the
No,
70s.
no. Not, you talking about Liberty
yeah,
Heights?
Liberty Heights.
Oh,
What do you think?
it had to be somewhere around the latter part of the 60s.
Okay, latter part of 60s.
Yeah, because we didn't have a house when I first
Okay.
joined. So that was in 1966. We didn't have, we were going from pillar to post then.
Okay.
We bought it when the conclave was in New Orleans. I can't think of the year.
So I think it was 19,
Yeah.
my recollection, and I may be wrong, but I'm thinking somewhere there like 1969.
The conclave was here in '68, so that we didn't have the house at that time.
No, we did not.
So sometime after
1969.
'68,
Right.
early '70s at the latest.
Yeah, at the latest.
Yeah.
Okay. And as I understand, we basically revamped that place. It
Well,
was,
let me tell you about the beginning.
Okay.
okay.
Now, during that time, we decided that we would get a liquor license.
Okay.
Now, there were several things that we didn't qualify for, but we had Fox Harris.
Right.
Ah,
Now, we met with his friend, the judges downtown, and they set it up and ignored the fault we had for liquor license. Fox Harris was the cause of us getting a liquor license because you had to be so far from a church and all these other things. Well, Fox was the man, and I think he had the judges on his side and everything. So Fox was the man of getting liquor license for that house.
and that's what really, I
That
think a
kicked
couple
it
of
off.
you have said that once you got the house established, that really,
Well, that was a
brothers
piece-
started joining left and right.
It did. It just took off. Once
Right.
we got that house, the membership, I think if I recall, we had over 200 and some members
Wow.
when Box was president of Colmar.
Uh-huh.
But I wanted to add that, you know, one of the other things that we had a lot of influence because of also Sam Daniel. Don't forget him. Because Sam
Okay.
and Box were really close friends.
Yeah, right.
They were very, and Sam had his ear from the mayor.
Right.
So we had all of these
Connections.
That's
connections. And as you said, you've already heard it a number of times, Baltimore was and is a capital.
Mm.
And then it was really a capital. You wanted a job, you wanted whatever, you were a capital. Capital come in town, he wanted a job, he had a job.
Yes, Brother Randy.
Now, one of the things that the house did, especially when we had the liquor license, we had all the fine girls from everywhere coming to the house. So we got, a lot of brothers got financial because they wanted to be part of that.
Sure.
The house got them financial.
Sure.
You see, they can stand in the house and say I'm a Catholic. So that's when we developed over 200 members during that time. That house did it
The
all.
house did. Brother Cruz, you were going to say
Yes,
something.
I think it might be a good idea to point out that Baltimore attracted some of the biggest names in entertainment that you could think. Now, you guys are too young to remember Ella Fitzgerald,
I know the
Chief
name.
Webb,
Yeah.
Fats Domino, and what's this guy, can't think of his name right now.
Duke
Steve
Ellington.
Wonder.
Anyhow, there was a group called the Ink Spots.
Mm.
Right around the corner on Carey Street. I live right around the corner from Bill Kinney. He was from Baltimore.
Huh.
And I was trying to think of Fats Water.
That's
just
wild.
now.
Okay.
And right now, there is a bakery on Pennsylvania Avenue that pays tribute to those entertainers that used to come here. And if you like pastries, stop by the Avenue Bakery on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Oh, right, oh, right.
Well, you know, the Royal Theater was flourishing
At that time.
and they had acts coming in every week,
Right,
big
right.
name acts, you know.
Right.
But you know one thing that none of us have mentioned, the fact that, I'm talking from Kappa's, we used to sponsor some of the best entertainers at that time, like Stevie Wonder.
Huh.
We had at the Club Venus.
Huh.
I don't know if any of y'all
I
can
remember Club
relate to
Venus.
Club Venus.
And that was a
Earth,
fundraiser?
Fire, we had, this was all done by the Kappas.
Wow.
See, maybe I should not be giving out trade secrets, but at the time, you know, when entertainers were coming in town, we would jump on the bandwagon. So if they were going for a particular job for somebody else, then we said, oh, wait a minute, maybe we can get up, if they come in on that Saturday, maybe we get up that Sunday. And Club Venus was the venue at that time. So we would get those kind of guys, and we would like top-notch entertainment,
And sponsored by the Capitals.
sponsored by the Cap.
Well, that like, takes us to the very next question. We only have two more. Kappa night, a Vegas night in Kappa, right? Kappa Vegas night.
Right.
Now that is one of the top events in the country for Kappa Alpha Psi.
Sure.
And it started, I guess, not long after we got the Kappa House, right? So
Yes.
tell me about the night in Kappa Vegas.
I think it started, we got the idea from DC. I think we were over there, and the silhouettes from DC were having this night in Vegas or something. And Hankins and all of us were there.
I don't know who it was. If the first curse word you use, you're coming off that stage. That's what Gladys Knight said.
Okay.
And she's AKA.
Okay. So, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, Brother Randy or anyone else, night in Kappa Vegas. And you're thinking Brother Randy it came out of an
Okay.
idea from
Well, it came out of
DC.
that, Brother Hankins, Randy was correct, got the idea, and so he presented it to a group of us, and we said, okay, let's present it to the chapter. The chapter was ready to go with it. And Walter Pickett, some of you, I think you may know, he was the first chairperson. I co-chaired with Randy and somebody else. Oh, and Hankins.
Yeah.
And Gus Chase was in charge of securing the ladies for
The
seating
Host.
the hostess, okay? And we went down, the first, it was down at, what's that?
North Point Boulevard.
Boulevard.
West-
What was it?
West
North-
wind,
East-
east wind, rather, east wind.
Was it East Wind?
Yeah.
One of them.
Uh-huh.
And then,
East Wind.
Yeah,
what's that
on-
other place called?
Blue Crest North.
No.
Fontaine Blue.
Fontaine Blue.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's where I'm talking about. And we left there, and it was always a sellout. But when we got so big that Fontainebleau was just not adequate, so that's when we moved to
Martin's West.
Martin's West.
No, we went to East Wind before we
East
went
Wind,
to Martin
yeah.
West.
Did we?
Fontainebleau.
And
East
the first one, the price was $15 a head.
Yeah, I got it.
Wow.
That was the first.
$15. And
Yeah.
it sold out. From day one,
It's always been a sellout.
always been a sellout.
And the worst thing that happened over at East Wind, the
That's
white
right.
people
You're right.
weren't used to black people
Oh.
coming over there.
That's true. That's right.
So when we ended up, the police wrote a lot of tickets. They were waiting on it. They wrote a lot of tickets from that.
Wow. Wow.
And that
From
may have been
East
the
Wind.
impetus for us to leave there. Because
That's right, we left there,
we
police
left there real
everywhere.
quick because brothers come back out and find tickets on your car. You know, when I heard them, we thought we were having a.
They getting
So did it quickly, did it quickly become a national event for Kappas? Because,
It
you
just
could go
grew.
across
It
this
just
country.
grew.
It just grew.
Well, see,
It was something
Yeah,
different.
People know about Night Kappa Vegas
Right.
in Baltimore across this country.
but there were some other interesting things, and I have to be very delicate when I say this, because when we moved to Martin's West, I remember us having also some ladies to come in and how you
They decorate, they will decorate.
Right. As a better way of saying it, that's a good way. And that went well a couple of times. Then the third, I think we had it 3 times. The third time was, you say 3 balls you're out?
Yeah, that was
3
it.
strikes you out? Well, the ladies and our wives and
Sure. I
whatever
can't
said,
imagine.
oh no, oh no. I mean, there were some things that went on that particular night that were not, let's say, apropos. And so,
And it was always a black tie, real
Right,
high
yeah.
class
It
affair.
got to be a big draw, so we didn't need them anymore.
Gotcha.
And the wives were very happy.
I'm
But
sure.
we didn't need them anymore.
They need a decoration
It just-
crew.
It just got to be a big time.
But you
The
know,
wives
I
got-
one of my 9 brothers, from Philly, Robert Ridley, he was talking about that affair, and he said, there's no facility in Philly
Ah,
that we can do that. You know.
yeah, they
He
were
said,
so damn.
so we were fortunate in having a place like Barton's West to do it, you know, the
Parking,
out of the
hotel,
city,
bar, yeah.
whatever. And I understand the same thing in DC, it was not that type of facility. So from, not only entertainment factor and the creative ideas, but the facility helped us, you know, get that thing to really take off, you know.
but we did a lot of the work. The brothers did it at the beginning. We were doing a lot of the work. As a matter of fact, we thought we were doing all the work. And then they decided to
Let the
let
professionals come in.
professionals do it instead of
Yeah.
the brothers.
Yeah.
I always had mixed emotions about that, but I guess it worked out.
Yeah.
You know, because I thought it was a way for the brothers to really showcase, you know, it was not just that they were given an activity, but they were really involved. That was that involvement. And then when we took over, when the professionals took it over, it was a little.
And you're talking about the gambling tables and the wheels.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, gambling
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, so it took away a little bit, I thought, but,
It did.
and,
But
because,
it didn't stop the popularity.
no,
No.
as a matter of fact, it
It grew.
became greater.
Yeah.
In some cases of infamy.
No.
I'm sorry, what was we
Okay.
saying? So good.
One, start now.
Yep.
One last question, brothers. What advice would you give? What advice would you share with young men of Kappa Alpha Psi today, especially in the Baltimore Alumni Chapter?
Well, to tell you the honest truth, I would say to not only young brothers, but young people, prepare for your retirement. Because you'd be surprised as people who have not prepared for retirement and the shape they are in is terrible.
Oh,
So
my.
prepare for your retirement. But one incident, as I told you, I used to prepare taxes. And as you know, if you're working with somebody, the company pays half of the taxes and you pay half of the taxes. I know some girls who graduated from Callwood, you know, the press van and a Bentlow,
Uh-huh.
beautiful. They would come to me and I'll prepare the taxes. But if you are self-employed, you know, you pay
Pay your own.
everything.
Yeah.
And they would say to me, I can't afford that. They wouldn't even file. And the reason I'm bringing that up, because a lot of them will go down to collect the Social Security. The first thing the tax man is going to say, where are your taxes? You have no Social Security, no pension, nothing. And you're going from place to place. I know people like this, from place to place because you don't have any retirement plan. So I'm going to shut up.
Prepare for
I
retirement.
could go on that.
Brother Langley, ideas for young men in Kappa, young members of Baltimore Alumni Chapter. Any advice you want to share?
Familiarize yourself with what the founders had in mind. That's crucial. We've made some brothers who think it's a club. They don't think they have to give anything back. And planning, like Brother Kroon said, the reason I wasn't all of that active with Baltimore alumni up until the mid-60s, the fact that I was traveling a lot. It's impossible to plan a 40-year retirement. I've been retired 42 years.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I started planning that retirement at 30.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, to me, planning is everything.
Wonderful.
You've got to think way beyond now.
Yeah,
And don't do it in a vacuum where you're not still contributing something.
Gotcha.
My greatest enjoyment are my daughters who give away everything. They are constantly doing something in the community.
Wonderful.
And that, to me, if you're not giving, you're taking.
Mhm.
And it doesn't work.
Gotta give. Gotta give back.
If you want to be happy,
Amen.
of
Amen.
course you're not guaranteed any happiness there, but you've got to be able to feel good giving,
Mm,
not being a taker all the time.
great advice.
100%.
I'm gonna come this way, Brother Jay.
Well, you know, as I said, I've always been big on the idea of brotherhood, the spirit of what the founders meant, why Kappa Alpha Psi was created. So something has to be, and then we've got to develop something to retain those brothers, the brothers that are trying to do the right thing. We've got to be able to make sure that we're doing kinds of things that influence them to stay and to become part of. And I grew up being a giver. I mean, that was part of my DNA, because I went into Peace Corps. Give you an example. When I came out of college, I went into the Peace Corps. I always had this thing that you got to give back. I mean, you got to give back to something. You just can't be out there always taking in, but never giving anything out. And it's just such a great feeling inside when you are doing those things in the community, or you've been able to help someone, whatever the situation may be. But if you're giving, it's just part of what we all should be about. It makes our community stronger. It makes Kappa Alpha Psi stronger. It makes all of us as individuals stronger.
It's a consistent theme.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brother Dr. Bragg,
Well,
advice for younger Kappa men.
I guess all of us have sort of touched on different aspects of that question. I think my advice is don't become what we call a pinwheeler. You know, don't join the local chapter because you want to go to some of the parties they may have or things like that. You know, and you have to remember that this organization is worldwide, not citywide or national. This is worldwide. I mean,
yes,
in different countries and things
Yes,
like
sir.
that. So what you have joined is a tremendous, effective organization, and wherever you go, if you become active, if you become a regular member, don't just sign up for the local. If you participate in all the activities, etc., and so forth, wherever you go, you meet other Catholics. They say, "You brother."
You got family.
Doors open.
Yeah.
Doors open. All over Germany, anywhere. Doors open. You know, and you got to realize, but you have to grab it and take it and make something of it. And you go over and then people don't see you for the next 15 years. Actually, you blew a big opportunity.
Yeah.
You know. You know. I mean, who knows? You could go to LA and get a job from a brother. So I would say, worship or be aware of what brotherhood is. You know, it's a little different than a lot of these other groups you might be in. You know, but this organization, I don't know. I've been to so many places and they make you feel like a king when they found out you were a brother. You know.
Oh, believe me.
Right.
Yeah.
You're in Baltimore, you're the AI, Baltimore alumni, and all those fun things. You know. So that's my suggestion to brothers is don't become a pinwheeler.
Gotcha.
You know, if you're gonna do it, become active and yeah, I mean, of course, you know, a situation where you can't always participate in everything, you know, but just become, you know, basically active and travel.
Yes.
All the conventions, all the travel.
Okay. Okay, you can ask the question.
Whose idea was it to have this session? Because I take my hat off to whoever did it. And I think it should be an annual thing. I have enjoyed myself to no end listening to these senior brothers. I got the biggest kick out of the world of the attention I got. I couldn't even tie my tie.
All right.
And they took care of me like I don't know what. So I take my hat off to the brothers who planned this session. I think it was a beautiful idea.
I'm going to let the 50-year brother and senior brother chairman, Everett Jordan, respond at the very end. But Brother Langley, you wanted to say one last thing.
Not really, because I was going to say something about. I've really lost the train of thought listening to
Well, it's good stuff, sir.
But the chairman, he has really made that position a living thing, because before we used to have, well, blowhards.
Right.
They really weren't into doing what the position called for, and I take my hat off to.
Well, brothers, believe me, this is my last word. If you forget things, don't feel bad about it. Because sometimes I'm doing something in one room. I need something in the other room. I go in the other room, I have no idea. Well, I can't, I'm finished.
Well, I'm going to say this. You gentlemen are a blessing. And I'm so glad and proud that the chairman of the Senior Brothers Committee, Everett Jordan, Brother Everett Jordan, asked me to participate. I want to thank you from not only Baltimore Alumni Chapter, but all of Kappa Alpha Psi for your participation today. And I'm going to let Brother Jordan have the last word.
Okay. I just want to thank each and one of you for coming out. I want to thank Brother Chick, as I call him, for moderating this. This has been a wonderful session. As you know, I'm the chair of the Senior Brothers Committee, but I can't do anything, and I've said this many times to many of you, that I can't do anything without you all's support. And you all have provided tremendous support to me. Anything that I've asked for, you've been able to step up and do it. And anything for the chapter. But it's only the 6 of you, actually it's 5 here. And like I said, Brother Tut could not be with us today. But, you know, it's only 6 of you in the Baltimore Alumni Chapter who have served 50 plus years in BAC. And I truly, truly commend you for that. So thanks again.
And let me say, one of the things that hold us together is our breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
Our breakfast.
Yeah.
You see, we meet twice a month, and it keeps us together and keeps us in touch.
It keeps you young.
Not so young. It keeps us in touch and together. That's about it.
And we don't go there for the food.
That's
I
right.
applaud you.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
So that's a blessing within itself.